So, good morning. This is Dr. Casas. It is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. So I wanted to follow up on my comments yesterday, and I absolutely wanted to respond to some of the comments that the leaders in the city and the state of California have made. So essentially what Governor Newsom has stated, what Karen Bass has stated, and what all the Democrat Party politicians have stated is that the way to stop these riots is simply to have federal law enforcement no longer do their federal law enforcement jobs in the state of California. That is absolute madness. That is the height of irresponsibility. Now, what I would say to each of you, whether it's Governor Newsom, whether it's Karen Bass, or any other Democrat who is sharing this perspective, is Lake and Riley, Jocelyn and Gary, Molly Tibbetts, and the list goes on and on and on of Americans who have been murdered by people who entered the country illegally. And for your edification, entering the country illegally is in fact a crime. So the idea that the only way to stop riots is to allow people who broke our laws to continue doing what they're doing is madness. So there's a bigger picture here. And again, at the California level, you're paying the price. You provided free medical care for these people who entered the country illegally. And the reason you don't do that is because they entered the country illegally. You don't reward criminal behavior. As a result of Governor Newsom's policies, this state is in debt about $10 billion for that free medical aid that they got. That's wrong. Those are my tax dollars. Those are your tax dollars. What's the broader picture at the national level? At the national security level? Again, as I shared before, immigration policy absolutely requires reform. This whole idea of simply claiming asylum and entering the country is madness. We must protect the sovereignty of our country, our national security, and we must create a clear path for this era of how immigrants can enter our country legally. But to continue on this path, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, no good will come of it. For those Democrats who may be hearing this message, and here's why I challenge you to rethink this. Again, my parents immigrated legally, so there is a process, and we should maintain the process. We don't break the law and then want the rewards. That doesn't make sense. But there's another problem, and this is where Gavin Newsom simply doesn't comprehend arithmetic. Same thing for you, Congressman Gil Cisneros, or your staffers who may watch this. Learn arithmetic. There are over 5 billion people on the planet who make less than $2 per day. And if we had open borders and they think they can come to California and reap all the benefits, your state would literally fall overnight. So the open border policy and your term for this state, sanctuary state, is madness. There is no way that this is financially sustainable. Simply impossible. If we're going to help people who need help, we've got to do it in place. And this is where at the national security level, at the Washington, D.C. level, we've got to make sure that we're taking care of our neighbors to the south. Currently, all forms of socialism south of the border are a complete failure. Let me emphasize this point. Currently, all forms of socialism south of the border are a complete failure. This has never worked. We can go back to the 1950s when some of my Democrat friends point out that we had banana republics, and they blame us for what's going on now. Somehow we're responsible for their drama 75 years later. But what they forget is that the reason there were banana republics is because the old Soviet Union decided to make themselves at home south of the border. And that was simply not going to work. And sadly, there were proxy wars. That is the fault of the Soviet Union, not the United States of America. So keep in mind that we've got to fix immigration reform. I have a plan. I need to get to Washington, D.C. to fix this issue. I suspect if I can get my 15 minutes with the president, I suspect he's going to go for it. But we need people who have a plan, who will get support of the president, for both Democrats and Republicans, to execute it, to get it through Congress, to get it through the Senate, and to get the president's signature on it. I need your vote. And again, as I shared yesterday, Congressman Cisneros, you're incompetent. You were incompetent your first term. You're more incompetent now. You were never qualified to be the Undersecretary of Defense for Readiness. If President Biden, for whatever bizarre reason, had not appointed you directly after you were thrown out of Congress the first time, you would never have made the first cut on the list. You've never been a general or an admiral. You've never gone to war. You've never had leadership in the military. You literally don't have the foundation, prerequisites to have made any sort of first cut to become an Undersecretary of Defense at all. And I think you lasted perhaps 6 months. So again, I would debate you anytime, anywhere. And if you meet me on a debate stage, I will dismantle you. 2 messages, one for Sheriff Luna. He made the statement that protesters have a right, some sort of foundation for what they're doing. And no, sir. Breaking federal law is breaking federal law. And we need to address the immigration issue. If you think they have some sort of right, what I would say to you, Sheriff Luna, words matter, your intent matters, and any possible interpretation matters. If you're going to say it, say it. If you're not going to say it, don't say it. But basically saying that somehow people have a right to enter our country illegally, that's wrong. And what's going on now are not protests. If I stand in the middle of the street today, whether it's Los Angeles, here in Laverne, Baldwin Park, or anywhere in between, and I just stop traffic or stop the freeway and I say I'm protesting and I don't get out of the way, I'm going to jail. That should be your standard. But it's not. This is mob rule. That's why it's called a mob, and that's why it's called a riot. That's not a protest, because their right to protest, sir, their right to protest ends where my First Amendment rights begin. So if I cannot drive down a public street because they're barricading the street, that's not a protest. That's a riot. That's a mob, and they should all go to jail. Shame on you for saying something that has an interpretation. To LAPD Chief McDonald, same correction. Words matter. Your statement about you had officers on boots on the ground within 30 or 40 minutes after you got the call, you're wrong. I saw the video. For hours, there was no LAPD boots on the ground. So your answer evades the issue. And this is where I would say to both of you, to Sheriff Luna and to Chief McDonald. Stop being politicians. A, you're not very good at it. B, federal law enforcement was getting attacked, and this is specifically to Chief McDonald. Federal law enforcement was literally being attacked, and nothing was happening. And again, I'm retired from the military, but if in your command headquarters, given the size of LA, if you don't have at least a dozen large screen TVs monitoring the critical areas, so as soon as you see something going wrong, you can get teams there, law enforcement there. If you don't have that, sir, you need to retire. You are missing a valuable source of information that you can leverage in 2025. So your statement that you were there 30 or 40 minutes after the call, that's ridiculous. Anyone who reviews all the video knows that for hours there was no law enforcement. So please, don't be evasive. You're not very good at it. Regain your integrity and support federal law enforcement from getting assaulted. Watch some of the video. This is absolutely not a protest. These are riots and these are mobs. And at the tactical level, downtown Los Angeles, you need to stop it. You need to make sure our federal law enforcement is safe. You need to make sure the businesses are safe. And you need to make sure Americans are safe. At the national level, we need to fix this immigration. We have so many wonderful immigrants. We need a method to vet them. That's absolutely critical. If any of you, regardless of political party, are not making an effort to fix this, you're wrong. Laken Riley deserves better. Jocelyn Nangari deserves better. Molly Tibbetts deserves better. This is Dr. Casas. Stay close to Christ.